Good morning, guys. Not every day I get to bring you a phone repair because I don't get a ton of them. The reason I don't get a ton of them is because I don't often do same-day phone repair. So a lot of people are like, I want my phone now. But this customer was not. So today we have a T-Mobile Revvl 6 in for service, and this is why we have a cracked screen. So of course we need to replace the screen. We're going to start by setting this guy on the heating pad here, warming up that back cover, and then we'll get it pulled. Tools for this involve a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. We've got our spudger thing here that pulls the back glass off. And then, of course, we have a new screen and a trusty LTT screwdriver with a few bits here, even though we only need one, really, because that's all it's going to take. So. Probably getting close to the point where this is loosening up. So just got to make sure that the tip is nice and clean before it goes in.
That's what she said.
Then I'll see if I can start separating this back cover here.
Okay, so at this point, we're basically just going to take that knife and slide it around the outside edge. If you feel any resistance, just be careful. You can run into situations where you can cut cables on iPhones if you do something like this. But on this particular device, you don't have to worry about that. It's fairly straightforward.
I'm just going to go ahead and slice that back cover the rest of the way off. And there you go. We've got the back cover off of here. We'll set that aside for the time being. We're going to turn off this hot pad because we don't need it on anymore. We'll set the phone aside. And we'll set the hot pad aside. And we'll transfer to our cooler working surface. So, first thing we need to do is pull off this mid frame. Now this mid frame, I believe, is, oh yeah, we do have this that has to come out as well, which this is just the camera hump thing.
So yeah, it's actually the camera lens protector, but it's held on with the same exact adhesive that holds on that back cover.
So there you go. All right. So you can see there's a whole bunch of screws here for the mid frame. These screws are just Phillips screws, so they're going to be straightforward for us to replace. And I'm just using my Phillips 00. That is small enough to handle this.
Okay, so at this point, basically, we're just going through and pulling all the screws out of here. This is going to be the point where most of your screws are coming out of the phone. You have a couple that live underneath of this mid-frame, but that's about it. And then there's actually two sneaky ones that I catch a little bit later on, but I don't catch those until I'm actually trying to pry the mid-frame away from the actual frame of the phone. So, and then I seem to have forgotten how to actually pull the mid-frame off, and then I remembered magically, but of course, as soon as I remember, my phone rings, and oh yeah, forgot that SIM tray. But then my phone rings, so I have to leave you guys high and dry for about 5 seconds.
Sorry guys, it was actually the same different customer, not the one that I'm expecting. Yeah, basically what you're going to start to do here is just go around the outside edge to pull off that mid frame, and essentially try to hold on to the battery and the screen itself, because the mid frame just pops off. It's actually where the blue thing that I'm holding on to here, it's all part of it.
All right, so I fussed with this mid-frame for a little bit, trying to get it pulled off. But in the end, I end up finding two sneaky little screws that were supposed to come out initially as part of everything else.
Looks like I might have missed a screw here because it has a cover on it. I don't want to tug too hard because I don't want to ruin that, but there's a little S, a screw with an S on it right there. And there's one at the bottom too. S for sneaky, that's what I say. Little sneaky, little slithery little snake. Alright. So I think that's just your power button that I pulled there. But you can see the mid frame is all removed now. So now the important part comes, which is basically pulling everything else out with the board here. So the main part here, and I'm going to grab my tweezers, that you have to detach before pulling everything out is going to be right here. And that's basically just your, I think that's your camera, your front facing camera. But I'm going to set that aside up here. And then you've got this little guy right here has to pull out too. That's the speaker for the front. Before I start messing around on the board, I should probably pull the battery. So your battery is going to be one of the most difficult things for you to get out. Because basically there's some super sturdy adhesive on the back of this these batteries. Just like that. So step 1 and step 2 decided to stay stuck down, but they allowed me to pull the battery out anyway. So I'm gonna pull that. I believe, I'm not sure if we get new adhesive with the new frame. I don't think we do. Actually, we do. But I'm leaving the pull tabs right there, so we don't have to worry about that. So basically what we just unhooked there was the screw, or the screen and the battery. Our next step here is going to just be trying to pull the board out, but we're going to have to detach some other things first here. So we got to detach our Wi-Fi and our Bluetooth antennas, as those live down here at the bottom. And you can kind of pull that out, and then your board should start to just move a little bit. It should lift right out, just like that. So that's your main board there. Okay, and those are your rear cameras, so just be really careful with those as well. And then, like I said, this is your loudspeaker, or not your loudspeaker, but your speaker for your phone calls and stuff. So it has to come out, and it's adhered pretty well in there, so just be careful when you try to pull it out, because you don't want to damage it. My suggestion would be with a fingernail instead of sharp tweezers, so you don't accidentally damage anything. And then we do have some buttons along the side here. And I've watched a couple tutorials on how this is done. And the previous guy used isopropyl alcohol to break this loose. And I don't disagree with that tactic. I just really hate introducing that into a phone if I don't have to. So if I can meticulously push it up with some tweezers and not damage it, then that's going to be the route I'm going to choose. Which it looks like I was able to successfully do that, at least for this connection here. I may not be able to get away with that for the rest of it. Yeah, so that's not working, so I probably will have to do some isopropyl alcohol to get that out. But I'm gonna turn my focus now to down here at the bottom, where we have our loudspeaker and our charging port and everything else. That loudspeaker has 2 screws that come out of it. And then it should pop right out too. just like that. And then you have your bottom board here, and that should, in theory, pop up as well. Okay, got that out of there. That bottom board, like I said, just has your charge port and your loudspeaker. Get that guy pulled. It's your microphone. All right, and I think that's it for this. Apart from this right here, which we do need to pull out. I will isopropyl alcohol that bad boy up.
At this point in the video, I wised up and realized I was using the wrong tool to try to pull that power button off. That's the power button and the volume up and down, I do believe. And as a result of using a knife like this, I was actually able to slide it underneath of those buttons. They're adhered pretty well, so at least the isopropyl alcohol did help in removing those. So pull it gently to get to the next one down, stick that knife in, slide it under, and just kind of work it.
Power button removed. So this is the part that's basically just getting replaced. The whole shebang here.
All right, so for this next part, we're going to just do this in fast forward because it's essentially starting to do everything that we did before in reverse. Getting rid of that little toolkit because it's worthless. You can see those blue spots there. Those are the adhesive spots for the new battery. First thing we're going to try to get back in there is that bottom board. It's fairly straightforward getting that bottom board in. Also to note, that microphone at the bottom did come with the new frame, and it also came with a new speaker up top, so we did not have to reinstall those. So you'll see that those are still there at the end. Continuing on, I am basically just trying to template out where those mid-frame screws are, and then screw in the loudspeaker according to that at the bottom. And then what we're doing here is we're routing those Wi-Fi antenna back up through their cable management channel up to the top motherboard there from the power board. This next part here is important for me to explain just because I didn't use isopropyl alcohol on the little gold cable there. But you're going to want to use some kind of adhesive to put it back down. I was going to try and do it without the adhesive. It just didn't work. The adhesive I use is called B7000. B7000 is typically used as a jewelry glue, or, you know, a lot of folks in my industry use it to hold phone screens in, and then they clamp them for a little bit after they've been reinstalled on iPhones and things like that, or, you know, as an adhesive replacement for a back cover if it needs it. In this particular case, this little phone button copper piece here did not want to stay in position because the glue was still too wet. So a bit of advice: if you're going to use some adhesive, put the adhesive down, let it get a little tacky first, so let it sit for probably about 5 minutes, and then come back and push your connector down into the adhesive, and it'll stay in position with no problems. That's what I wound up doing here.
Yeah, I don't really understand what I'm missing here. Maybe it's the antenna here or the loudspeaker, but it's just not sitting quite all the way down, and I don't really like that. Something's off. What is it? There's the actual customer I was expecting earlier. I'll be right back, guys.
So I wound up fiddling with this for way too long. You can see I'm like pulling it out, reassessing, putting it back in, when all I really had to do was give it a nice solid push. But I get a little nervous to give things a solid push, especially when they're a tiny fragile PCB, but here you go.
Or maybe I just need to push a little harder.
All right, guys, here we are back into quick mode again, just continuing on with what we were doing before since we got that motherboard clicked in so satisfyingly well. We're just running those Wi-Fi cables again up through their channels, pushing them down. I realized that the black one had to go first and then the white one, and then clip those back to the board. And it looks like I'm reinstalling that front camera module, just making sure it's pushed down all the way. You want to make sure you hear a good click when you push it into place. And then here I'm installing the bottom board connector to the top board, as well as the touchscreen portion. And then next is the battery. So just make sure your batteries, your little tabs for your battery are kind of back into position. So if it needs to be removed again, it can. Pull the adhesive. Now this is a part that's a little challenging. This ribbon cable was stuck a little strangely in there, so you did have to reseat it after putting the battery back in, and then that battery cable clicks back to the board, of course. And then reattaching that mid frame by simply plugging a screw into, not plugging a screw, plugging that cable back in for the power button there on the side. We're clipping it back in all the way around. Looking pretty good so far.
I'd say that's a good fix, wouldn't you? I'm gonna pull down from the top. We're gonna push the power button, power it off. Yeah, touchscreen works. Everything's in good shape here. So let's put our screws back in and then we'll call it a day.
All right, last fast forward portion here, because let's face it, we're just putting screws back into the mid frame. So this part's gonna be super duper straightforward. All we're doing is adding these screws back to the phone. I think I managed to get all of the screws back into this phone except for one. And honestly, I don't know where it went because I checked everywhere and there were no missing screws. So, yeah, but oh well. I wound up putting all the screws in here. I'm ignoring a phone call just because I'm trying to get this video finished, but I called the customer right back. So it was only like 2 minutes, no big deal. And yeah, that was me searching for that last screw. So, and then I'm straightening out the adhesive on the back of that back panel there, putting that camera on. There are some grooves that snaps into as well, so it's not just adhesive that holds the camera bump on. And that's it. We're rubbing it down, getting it all resealed.
Thank you guys for watching. If you like this content of the screen replacement, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe, and you know, maybe eventually I'll figure out where this one screw was supposed to go, but overall I think we're gonna be just fine phone operation wise. So let me slip this SIM tray back in, and you guys have a great rest of your day.